Thank you so much for joining us here on An Hour to Give. We are featuring Options Bytown, and I'm so excited to welcome to the show Catherine Vanderline. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. What's your role at Options Bytown?
So I'm the executive director at Options Bytown. I've been there for almost 7 years now.
Wow, 7 years.
Yep.
That's amazing. And you brought a friend. Cheryl's here with you today. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. What's your connection to Options Bytown?
I live at Options Bytown. I've been a tenant for about 9 years now.
9 years. That's amazing. So you know each other well. Kick us off for those that may have heard of Options Bytown. They don't know what that means. Give us the skinny.
Yeah, of course. So at Options Bytown, we end homelessness one person at a time. We do that in a few different ways. We have 4 supportive housing apartment buildings that we operate, where we provide deeply affordable permanent housing to people who are experiencing homelessness. We have staff on site in those buildings providing supports, whatever that looks like, to the people who live there. They're there 7 days a week. So we have about 140 people living in that program. And then we have a Housing First team, so they work with individuals experiencing chronic homelessness. Help them find apartments around the city. Sometimes it's in the private market, sometimes it's in social housing. And then they help them move in, get set up in their apartments, and then they provide supports on site in those apartments as well. So we have another about 150 people who are housed that way. And we do a significant amount of work on homelessness prevention, because we know if we can keep it from happening in the first place, that's the best case scenario. So we support about 1,000 people a month in preventing homelessness in 8 different Ottawa community housing buildings. So we have staff on site in those buildings doing that kind of support as well.
That's a big mandate.
It is.
Very, very big mandate. And Cheryl, when you first sort of heard about Options Bytown, what was your reaction?
Well, if I'm being honest, before Options Bytown, I did not realize what supporting housing was. I had pretty much come from a shelter, and I was offered an apartment, and that's what I saw. And then when I moved in, and as time went on, I realized, oh, that's what supportive housing is. And then that's when I also realized that, okay, I actually need supportive housing. And once that comprehension was made, it's been honestly wonderful. The staff have been so supportive. They're there for just about anything you need, you know? So that's what it was to me.
It's amazing. I love that story. I mean, Cheryl's just one story, but I think it's an important one to share, because everybody has their own circumstance as to why they arrive at the doors of Options Bytown.
They do. And everybody has a different story on how they came to experience homelessness, and they come to Options. Everybody is an individual, and getting to know people is really special. And having them share parts of their lives and being part of them kind of reconnecting with parts of themselves that they had to set aside when they were trying to survive without a home. So whether that's reconnecting with things that are important, like art or reading or having a pet, or reuniting with family or friends or a faith, or employment or volunteering, or whatever it is that people lost during their time while being homeless, we get to be a part of that reconnection, and that's pretty special.
I hear quality of life when you talk that way. That's
Definitely.
what I keep hearing. It's just this quality of life.
Definitely.
And would you say your quality of life, Cheryl, has increased since you've become part of Options?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The members of the team will get you the resources that you need. They're there to talk to you, and just also knowing that they're there if you need them is actually very gratifying. It gives you a much higher comfort zone. When you're dealing with various mental health issues, just knowing somebody is there if you need them, makes it just that much better.
Absolutely, 100%. And is it daunting, Catherine, to sort of see in the media and to see firsthand the crisis that we're in right now? Does it sometimes feel daunting in your role?
It does. It really does. And it's heartbreaking. And, I know that 2,000 people last night were unhoused in our city, in our community. And, I never take for granted that I have a safe home to be in. And I think about that every day. And that's what gets me up and back to doing it again the next day, because it's not okay. And I'm not okay with, being part of a community where this happens, right? And I don't think any of us are. So we need to keep all hands on deck. We know that, homelessness can be ended, and we have to keep at it until we get there.
And we're just obviously heading into 2024, such an important time to obviously raise money to ensure you have everything that you need heading into this year. It's never been more important. And I know we say that sounds cliche-ish, but it's the truth.
It is. It is the truth. And the more we have, the more we can do. So the more we have available to us, the more people we're able to help find housing and get the supports they need. We are, like I said, about 135 people live in our supportive housing buildings, and we have 630 on the waiting list to get in, right? So we really need that support. We need advocacy. We need people to welcome deeply affordable housing being built in their neighborhoods, supportive housing being developed. We need landlords to come on board. We work with a lot of landlords around the city who provide us with apartments for our Housing First program. So we need all hands on deck to do this work.
All hands on deck for sure. And Cheryl, tell me a little bit about your story.
Well, before options, I was, I guess if you want to call it a regular person, I had a job. I ran a small part-time business of my own. I ended up developing breast cancer, and everything had to change at that juncture, and I was certainly prepared for the physical problems that would arise from that, be it treatment and dealing with that. What I was not aware of was the toll it would take on my mental health. That I was completely unprepared for, and things kind of went from my physical health got better. My mental health, however, went down, and I ended up at a couple of shelters, and then was eventually fortunate enough to come into contact with Options Bytown. So.
But just even hearing you talk about the physical side versus the mental health side,
right.
We don't talk about that, Cheryl. We need to talk about the mental health side of experiencing something like breast cancer.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm not sure many people would be aware of how crippling it can cause your mental health.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
It really is important for you to share that message today. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I mean, Catherine, this is one story, as we've said before, but even just hearing that, because I think many people think you get diagnosed with cancer and that the treatment options are so many now, and then you sort of get on with your life. But here's an example of where Options steps in.
Absolutely. And we take that into account when we offer support. So every person that comes has been through something that has brought them to us. And even just the experience of being homeless is traumatic, trying to survive out there. Homelessness is not a short episode anymore. Right? Somebody loses their home and they're homeless for a very long time now because the just housing is not accessible. So we know that when we start working with somebody or supporting them, that there's going to be a lot there. A lot of support needed, and particularly mental health, substance use, whatever it is. We're prepared and we're there.
It's amazing. What would you say to someone watching, listening right now, Cheryl, that maybe is going through their own, and they feel, their own story, and they feel really alone?
You're not. You're not alone. There are people that can help you. You just need to know how to reach out. And even if that's going to the shelter, I've always said if things get really bad, there's always options. And it's true. It's true. You know, there's hope. It can be done. I'm not that special. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And let options help you.
I think you're pretty special.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I mean, I just want to learn more about this organization. We're going to be chatting with many, many different people today, but give us a sense for someone that's just, once again, just learning about you. How can somebody help you? What do you need today?
Sure. So, I mean, the best place to start is our website, optionsbytown.com. On there, if it's a matter of, if somebody wants to make a donation, that's available there. If somebody wants to come in for a visit, I love having people come and visit. I love showing them what we do. I think it's one thing to describe it. It's one thing to read about it on the website, but when you come in and you see and you feel it and, you interact with what we do, it's really special. So I more than welcome people to come, to be in touch and come by for a visit. Yeah.
I had the pleasure of attending your AGM this year and seeing how far you've come. You were so proud that day, and it was just the buzz in the room, and the staff were excited, and you could see, this hasn't been an easy journey for all of you, but you have plans, and you know where you're going, a strategic plan. You know exactly where you want to take this organization. How refreshing is that to kind of have a plan heading into this new year?
It is. It's exciting, and we recognize that the work that we do, with the shortage of housing out there, we need to find creative ways of doing this work. So like I said, preventing homelessness from happening in the first place is where we go first. So, we do that. I know you're speaking with a colleague later, but we're doing supports for people living with hoarding behaviors, because hoarding is a real contributor to evictions. So, anytime we can get in there and we can work with somebody to help them not lose their housing in the first place. A number of people that we work with who moved out of an apartment because they got a letter from their landlord that said they had to go. It's heartbreaking. People aren't aware of what their rights are as tenants, and end up losing their housing for that reason. So we try and get in on the front end as much as we can to prevent that from happening in the first place. And then if it does happen, we do everything we can. We try to be really creative in how we help people find housing and get set back up, and then provide those supports. Over 90% of people that we work with who find housing never return to homelessness. So it's really that support piece. The housing is just one part. It's the supports that come in afterwards to make sure that there's no return to homelessness down the road.
You've done it again. You've inspired me again.
Yay.
Catherine, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. Catherine Vanderline joining us today, as well as Cheryl. We're not done, though. Options Bytown is featured today on An Hour to Give. I know you're coming back. I'm Sam Laprade. Stay with us, everyone. And we're back on An Hour to Give. Today's all about Options Bytown, where we're talking about a very special partner of theirs. And Sarah Button joins me now. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sam.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm so excited you're here, and I love the fact that Options Bytown is sharing this time with a very important partner. Tell me who you're representing today.
Yeah, it's lovely of them. So I am the Executive Director of Centertown Citizens Ottawa Corporation. We shorten it up to CCOC, and we are a nonprofit landlord here in Ottawa.
So this is brilliant.
Yeah.
So tell me how you work together with Options Bytown.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with a little bit what we do, and then kind of how the partnership part comes into that. So CCOC is, as I said, a nonprofit landlord, and we have 54 properties across the downtown core. And so our model is a mixed income model. That means that about half our units are subsidized in some way, or subsidized through various programs, and the other half are market rent units. So, and those units house a variety of people, all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of income levels. We have properties that look like anything you can imagine that exists within Centertown, everything from Century Homes to brand new passive house, opened this year, sort of state-of-the-art, high-end, energy-efficient buildings. So we really have a whole variety of things. And so we do the property management, the landlording part, but we don't offer supportive housing ourselves, and that's where Options comes in. So we work with partners, Options among them, who provide supports to some of the tenants in our building. Folks need all kinds of different levels of support to ensure successful tenancies and long-term tenancies, and we're really in this for the long haul. And so partners like Options, they provide different levels of supports. I think we're hearing from some of that team today about the different types of things that they provide. And we have various models of how we work with Options. So one of our properties is basically completely dedicated to Options, but they also provide supports in more of a distributed way to some of the tenants across our portfolio. So as folks are moving along, finding themselves more stable, moving out of homelessness and into permanent housing, they might find themselves a tenant of ours.
That's brilliant. That's
It is.
brilliant. So it kind of reminds me of chocolate and peanut butter. They're both great, but together they're better.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
great.
right
That's
on.
wonderful. That's great. And obviously working with someone like Catherine, the executive director of Options Bytown, and the energy that she has and her team. And I've said it time and time again, there is no charity that can do anything by themselves anymore.
Absolutely.
It is all collaboration.
Absolutely.
So how does it benefit the residents to be partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, as you just said it really, like we can't do anything alone, and we need all of the solutions, right? We hear so much about how we're in a housing crisis, and rent is getting ever more expensive, and folks are needing ever more support. And so having these strong partnership relationships, first of all, we learn so much from each other. Our team learns from their team, the Options team learns from us. But also knowing that we've got options, pun intended, choices and folks that we can reach out to when we find our tenants are struggling, that we can learn from each other and work together to make sure that someone's maintaining a successful tenancy, right? And that's what makes the whole thing work, is knowing that folks have opportunities to find the support that they need at the level that's appropriate for them. Some folks need a lot of help. Some folks just need a little bit of help sometimes for a small amount of time. And so when we have organizations like Options in our broader ecosystem, it makes sure that even more people can stay housed successfully in perpetuity, right, over the long term. And that's what everybody wants, is a stable home where that they can stay in over the long term, that they can make theirs and lead the lives that they want to lead from there.
Right. And I hear words like dignity in there, and I hear words like safe. I mean, that's a big part of this.
Yeah, and it's about giving people choice, right? And giving people the choices to design the lives that they want to lead, to set up the conditions for the dreams that they have, and the hopes and aspirations and all of those things, right? Housing is absolutely foundational. It's fundamental to any kind of success that you want to have in life. And so, if at some point in your life you need a little bit of help with that, then isn't it great that there are groups like Options out there to provide it? And I think, what we do is a little bit bigger picture. We are part of the overall housing system, but making sure that there are places for people to choose what they need and what they want at different stages is really critical, right? And we get nowhere alone. We have a huge housing crisis, and we need to throw all the possible solutions at it. Everything from the work that Options does to end chronic homelessness, which they do super successfully, to the work that we do in terms of providing, a little bit more diversity in the housing space.
What would you say to somebody that maybe is working in housing and they are really just focused on the market rent and working on all those pieces, as opposed to kind of carving out a piece to ensure that affordable housing is still something that is so crucial?
Gosh, I could talk about that question all day.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
all day. We are in such there is such an intensity of a crisis, right? It's a cresting wave. We have all of these forces that are connected to housing. It's economics, it's finance, it's income, and it's also the extent to which people are struggling, especially in the wake of the pandemic. And I think if you're out there working in any aspect of housing, and lots of jobs touch on housing, there's lots of folks who are thinking about this. I would say, we really need all the solutions. We really need everyone who's thinking about this problem and the complexity of this problem. Like, we need all the brains working on this. And so, we often hear folks talk about we need to build more supply, and that is absolutely true. We do need to build more, but we really need to hone in on truly affordable supply. And what that means is, units that are affordable to folks who are making low and moderate incomes. And, you might be surprised at what those numbers look like, especially in the Ottawa area, in terms of what rent levels are affordable to folks making moderate incomes. We just don't have enough stuff at that level. And a lot of stuff that's newly built just fundamentally isn't reaching those levels of affordability. And these are not outrageous rents that we're talking about. So I would say, put on your, if you're working in this space and you're adjacent to housing in some way, like, put on your systems hat, or put on your critical analysis hat, and say, how can I, within my little sphere of control, try and move the needle? Because there's almost always going to be something you can do. And there are so many ways into this problem. There are so many solutions that we need, and so many things we need to shift. It can absolutely be easy to get overwhelmed, but I think the potential for change is enormous. And as long as we're all, we agree this is a crisis, we agree this is an emergency, then there's always something we can do.
Creativity is the name of the game.
Totally.
And thinking about things differently. We think about the opportunities, and I'm saying opportunities on purpose, that COVID really brought us, because I think there's a chance to think about things just a little bit different, and think about spaces differently.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think we learned from COVID as a society, as a sector, is that when we want to move fast, we can. We can. Think about how quickly we were able to change things, to move things online, to start doing virtual meetings, to providing services in a different way. And when faced with an emergency, we do know how to react. We do know how to make change. And I think, housing feels really big and complicated, but we do know how to make change. The solutions are out there, right? And so I think there are lots of opportunities and lots of things that folks are talking about now in terms of using the existing bricks and mortar that we have around us in all sorts of creative ways. And some of those are going to take a little bit of time to come to fruition, but we really do see lots of new partnerships, people thinking creatively about financing new construction, new development, about converting properties and buildings, about acquiring properties and buildings, about pressing what is already standing into use to try and work on this housing crisis.
I love that. And so when you think about, and you maybe share with someone else in the community, I'm partnering with Options Bytown, what's the response? Are people surprised?
I mean, I think for us, people are not so much surprised. CCOC is an organization that works in partnerships. We couldn't do what we do without the partnerships we have, and we have a very long history of working in partnership with lots of organizations. And so I think it's more, for me, I think of it as a little bit of an education piece, right? That housing is a community thing. And so when I think about the model that we have about nonprofit housing, it's there in the name, right? We're protecting housing outside of market forces. And we don't get to do that without partners. What makes this model go in a lot of ways is the partnerships that we have, are these really long-term positive partnerships that let us do both the market housing and the subsidized portion and the supported portion within that. And I think it's about sharing that is part of the ecosystem, right? These aren't separate, discrete things that need to happen in isolation from each other, but that housing, in as much as it is a complicated system, is one where we have to work together. And so I think it's not so much that folks would be surprised to learn it, it's that they might be surprised to learn the depth and breadth of the partnerships that are required to make the system work, and to make mixed communities, mixed income communities, diverse neighborhoods really thrive, because that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to help neighborhoods thrive.
Yeah, and one family at a time, one person at a time. Yeah. It can feel, as I said to Catherine from Options Bytown a little bit earlier, it can feel daunting, but if we do nothing, that's way more daunting. So absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, CCOC is one of the largest nonprofit landlords in the country, which is really cool. And, we're here in downtown Ottawa, and that's really neat. One of the largest non-municipal nonprofits. But And that, that's a really neat thing, and it's a unique thing that we do. And so we get to make a difference for people every single day at scale, both across the entire portfolio and all of the people we house, but also at the individual scale, as you say, like at the household scale. So the same way that options, the individual stories that make up the tapestry of options work and their tremendous success, it's part of this larger tapestry of the overall housing system and the overall nonprofit housing system and the success that provides. There are huge economic benefits to investing in community housing and nonprofit housing. The multiplier is enormous in terms of social and economic outcomes for folks who benefit from the type of stable housing that nonprofits can provide. And I think that's something that we really, really need to get behind and amplify and do more of, because it makes such a tremendous difference for people's lives.
Your passion for this is infectious.
Thank you.
I want to go out and start building houses right now.
Me too.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's wonderful. Sarah Button, thank you so much for spending time with us today from
Thank you.
CCOC. I always learn a lot from you, and today is no exception. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
it very much. We are talking all things Options Bytown today, and we're going to meet more people involved in this wonderful organization. If you want to learn more, you can check them out on their website, optionsbytown.com, and learn more about this wonderful organization. We're coming right back on An Hour to Give. I'm Sam Laprade. See you in a minute. I promised we were coming back on An Hour to Give. Here we are featuring Options Bytown today, and I'm now joined by Greg Sachs. Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
It's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you so much for having us aboard.
What's your title at Options Bytown?
So my current role at Options Bytown, I'm a case manager, and I work with our hoarding assistance team, or our short form would be HAT, the HAT team. So
Okay.
I work in the case manager with my clients.
And it's an important caseload that you would have. For people that may be just hearing the word hoarding, they might think about a TV show, or they might think about something they've heard in the media. Define hoarding for us.
So hoarding, if I'm, for the layman, if you will, that is really, there's a couple of factors that are involved. Typically it is excessive acquiring, as well as a persistent difficulty in discarding things that people acquire, regardless of their perceived value. So, and the other qualifying factors would be that this presents a distress or some form of occupational or sort of difficulty in their in terms of their living conditions, being able to be functional within their home.
Yeah, appreciate the explanation, because I think we want to make sure we're on the same same plane in terms of definition. So walk us through the connection between Options Bytown and hoarding. Make that connection for us.
So, as been talked about a little bit before in terms of the supportive housing, ending of homelessness with Options Bytown often means that people need to relearn some living skills, for example. As has been mentioned, the length of stay of homelessness sometimes can be greater greater homelessness, therefore people lose the ability to have some life skills. So part of our role at Options Bytown is to be able to teach people to thrive in their new home environment, right? And part of that, especially part of what we noticed, what was noticed over time, was that people coming into having their own housing for the first time tend to hold on to things, right? Because they have the space now and the security to do so. So with that being noted, it was very much observed that the tendency for people to hold on to things and this notion of hoarding came into play. In 2016, in terms of the history of Options Bytown with hoarding disorder, would be 2016, we were part of a pilot project through the city, working with another organization to assess hoarding within within our sector, so supportive housing, subsidized housing, and so in that way, we developed some tools to work with individuals that were very specific to our sector, to working with people with smaller spaces, potentially having other mental or physical challenges in their life that we would have to adapt our model to, the treatment model to. Through there, in 2018, that's when I came involved with a hoarding program with Options, and I was fortunate to be able to give them the opportunity to train with some of the developers of the program, and then we ran in turn with a co-facilitator who was a recovering peer from the original pilot project, and so now she is now giving that information out to others. How did she recover? How did she come through this whole process? I brought with me just a little book that this is sort of our manual, if you will, that we use, and is the Buried and Treasures workshop is what we offer, is what we initially were the only thing, it was what we offered as a treatment program, right? It was it's now a 16-week long, weekly, 2 hours a week treatment program that is really CBT based, cognitive behavioral therapy based. So cognitive behavioral therapy involves changing one's behavior through addressing the thinking, right? And in turn, addressing the thinking with someone's behavior. And there's a lot, and so what they've done here with this manual for us is basically collected cognitive behavioral therapy approaches that are very specific towards hoarding disorder.
Interesting.
So helping people understand. So there's a psychoeducational piece, which initially is the foundation of it, where people understand, how did this come to be? How did I all of a sudden have a home that I can't live in the way I want to because of my possessions? They own me. I don't own them anymore.
Wow, is that powerful?
So
When you say that, wow.
And of course, to bring full circle now, where we are now, where we actually have a small team to be able to, to work within our sector, that came about after the, last year during the pandemic, of course, with the increased isolation and, and then the lack of services that were available to people during that time frame. The presence of hoarding, just as you can well imagine, exploded.
Oh, I can only imagine, to be honest with you. And so give us a sense, if somebody is living in a home and a landlord might come and say, oh my heavens, this house has too much in it, it's unsafe, and try to evict that person, do you also help to ensure that they're the prevention of homelessness?
Absolutely. Yeah. So not only do we try to, again, whether I'm working individually with somebody, which is often what I'm doing when I'm working as a case manager, I'm working individual with them and coordinating a team approach to assisting somebody. And that looks very different for everybody. Hopefully, if somebody comes to us, and again, it's within our sector, so one thing that's for sure known is that there are many, many people outside of our sector that don't have access to us because we have some qualifying or a certain criteria, if you will, because of social housing, supportive housing. It's a small section of our city's population. And we know there are many, many people with homes that are hoarded up with this sort of thing and don't have a team approach. So we would come in with a team approach to try and coordinate something in terms of health and safety is our most primary, that's what we go for initially. And even if that's the goal we meet in terms of making someone's home safe and they still have all their stuff, that's what's most important. So we would come in with that psychoeducational piece, inform somebody about how did they come to this place, what's going on here. Help them make the connections to why they do what they do, to their behaviors, right? Helping them understand what those behaviors are like and why they act the way they do, why they acquire what they do. A lot of the times it's about building barriers, right? Keeping people safe. So when we're looking to, intervene in a situation, sometimes we're looking at taking away some of that security from people, right? So you can see that it's not just as simple as let's just clear everything out and everything will be okay. There's a process for this, and it's often slow and needs to be compassionate and in understanding. And I think that's where our team comes into play, right? That's where our opportunity that we saw to present this, and this came as a sector came together and said, you know what, we need to put this pilot project on the road, and we were one of the agencies who had some expertise in this, if you will, some experience in it anyway.
It really is an important, and I think there's a lot of people listening, watching right now that are saying, I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't even know that there was a team, let alone at Options Bytown, to help with this. Bust some myths for us, because I think a lot of people have a perception of maybe what someone's hoarding, but sometimes from my experience, I have a little bit of experience with it through a family member. Sometimes it's something as simple as something they really like to collect, so it could be just newspapers or yarn or something like that, and it just gets out of control.
So there's a reason why someone would collect something, you know what I mean? Obviously they find some beauty in it, right? There could be a beauty that they find in this, right? It could be a resource like food, for example, right? Which as of lately has been so scarce, right? So people hold on to these resources through insecurity, right? And so a lot of the times it's aesthetics, right, that you were saying, you know, somebody might collect, they like dolls. They like a specific type of doll, and they collect these particular dolls, and that, for lack of a better term, obsession, if you will, right? That motivation that they have can be aesthetic. It can be, you know, and then that accumulates, and really, because as we mentioned before, it's the difficulty in letting that go, especially even when the consequences of keeping something can be detrimental, right? And that involves a lot of the time housing, right? That involves something as precarious as someone's housing. And when we know, and especially with the sector that we work in, that when that's so precarious, we need to be able to, there needs to be an opportunity to intervene and to provide some support and help for somebody, sometimes in spite of themselves.
Yeah, so interesting. I could speak with you all day. It is fascinating work. It's rewarding, I'm assuming, but is it challenging on days?
Absolutely, absolutely, for sure, right? And my approach tends to be, I'm in there with you. I'm in there with you. This is, you know, and so that's always my first connection is to the person, and so sometimes that comes with a bag or a box or a trunk or a lot of stuff beyond just what's at face value. So a lot of the time that's the process. It can be slow because it's not just about the stuff. It's not about the stuff, right? It's really not about the stuff. So at the end of the day, when you can look beyond that and see the person and understand that connection to them, then it's really about translating some skills and some compassion, you know, and some understanding, and then some elbow grease, right? Some elbow grease, because that's really the you know, there's no magic wand. Nobody comes in there and says, "Whoop, it's all gone. Look, it's all gone. It's all organized for you," right? That does require some, you know, some stuff. So, with being such a small team, right, that approach has been slow.
You are perfect for this role. I mean, I haven't even worked with you, but just speaking to you today, you know, obviously very passionate about your work, but I can tell you're compassionate as well, and with the people that you would be working with. Is that something that you notice in yourself, or is it something you,
I tell you
hear?
What I look for, what I try to focus on is I'm very curious and very interested in the person I'm working with. So that's often that's what keeps me going. That allows me to be in a challenging place with somebody.
It's amazing.
Because there's something interesting about that situation. And trust me, it's like, if you look at it from a Sherlock Holmes type of perspective, right? If you're just going to be in there with your magnifying glass and looking for some sort of curious developments, then it can be actually enjoyable. So
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story today. Thank you for educating me. I learned a lot from you today. And this book, Buried Treasure, really interesting. It's something I want to put on my reading list. Thank you very much, Greg, for joining us today. Greg Sachs joining us today from Options Bytown, one of the amazing staff that work there. We've got one more segment for Options Bytown today. We're featuring them here on An Hour to Give. I know you're coming back. I'm Sam Laprade. See you soon. Welcome back to An Hour to Give. We often hear a term called housing first. And in relation to Options Bytown, we're going to learn more today. And Madison Salmon joins me now. Hi, Madison.
Hi, Sam.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. And you work for Options Bytown.
I do, yes.
And you brought a friend with you. Riley's here. Hi, Riley. How are
Hey.
you?
Good to you.
Yeah, great to have you here. So, Madison, tell me a little bit about your role at Options Bytown.
Yeah, so I'm on the Housing First team. On the Housing First team, our main goal is to find people permanent housing. So we usually start in the shelters or in encampments, wherever folks may be. So with Riley, I first met him when he was at the Ottawa Mission. And then from there, we meet with the client, get a sense of who they are, what they need from us. It's usually housing first. So we usually try to find anything they need to be successfully housed. So if it's getting on the registry, finding income, and then we try to find them suitable housing, whether it's in the private market or in supportive housing. And then once they are housed, we really take those supports and put them in the housing with them. So we transfer that, so make sure that they are, once they're housed, they feel supported.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I have a little secret for you. Do you want to hear? I used to work at the Ottawa Mission. So if you were
Wow.
there, and that's where they found you, which I'm so happy that they did. Talk to me a little bit about Options Bytown and how you've been connected through the Housing First program, Riley.
So I was in their community center, and I was like some days filling out applications to go work because you need an application to go to work there. Other days, I was talking with one guy, Matt, about getting Ontario Works, and he was like, "Are you on the housing registry?" So we went through the process, and he was like, "Well, you're already on the registry," and that's how I got hooked up with Madison.
That's great. I mean, these are the stories that we want to hear, is that somebody gets connected to Options Bytown, their life changes. The Housing First term, I first heard that term maybe 2 decades ago and immediately thought, well, that of course is the answer. Tell everybody why Housing First is so important.
So the Housing First model is really that everyone deserves housing, regardless if they're struggling with addictions, whether they have limited income, whatever you're going with, everyone deserves a place to lay their head at night and have somewhere to call home. So at Options, we really do that on the Housing First team. Everyone we work with, we try to get them housing regardless of what they're going through. It's hard to really start your life over without housing when you're in the shelter. It's hard to find job. It's hard to really secure anything. So once we get people in housing, we really find that once, they're able to get that housing, they're able to, whether it's find a job or, reconnect with family, kind of start that new chapter in life.
Tell me a little bit about your story, Riley.
So I guess from when I was staying at the mission and the different shelters, I'm an alcoholic. So being on Ontario Works and an alcoholic, sometimes I would have a job for a month or so and then be like, okay, well, now I have enough money. Now I don't need a job anymore. And sometimes I just wouldn't show up. Other times I couldn't find a job for the life of me, or filling out the applications to get a job. I'd show up late to some shelters, and then I'd have to move all my stuff to another one. It gets, unlocked, unclipped, and, well, I don't have money today. I'm going to have it in a few days from now. Can you keep my stuff? And, and then, it's it. And it was just kind of chaos. And then with the alcohol especially, especially during the pandemic when all the places were closed, I drink till till I couldn't see, and I would wake up at the mission or at the shop sometimes being like, oh, where's my stuff? So when you can't, when you don't have anywhere to put your stuff, even if it's in the locker or whatever, you don't have anywhere to put your stuff. You know, sometimes you can't rely if the bathroom's going to be clean. You know, you know, different people there do different things. That's their own thing. But you know, sometimes they're in the stall doing it. Some people are in the stall drinking and all that type of stuff. You know, and so it's like, you know, when you're staying in the shelters, some people, they don't stay there. You know, it's I'm up at this time, I'm gone. I'll be back at this time, and then I'll be here. But for all the in between, when like the counselors are there, they're not there because they don't want to be there. You know.
Thank you for sharing your story, by the way.
Okay.
I just want to say that I think it's really brave and really awesome that you're sharing this with me today. So thank you for that. So right off the bat, I wanted to say that to you because I think it's really special that you would share that, because I think what you're doing, and you may not even know it, is you're helping other people listening and watching right now. So thank you for that. And when you think about Riley and you think about the story that he's just shared with us, and then you know, options can really let him have a brand new day and have a brand new life. How rewarding is that for you, Madison?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, Riley moved in beginning of December to his new place. And he's already thinking about getting a job, volunteering in the community. So really looking at starting his life over again. And like you were saying, when you're in the shelter, it's impossible to do those things. And you know, just
well, just to get the first step going, and then sometimes depending on, like, I mean, me, like I drink. So sometimes it would be like, okay, well, I have my money, but there's nothing really to be paying for. And that's where it goes to the LSBO.
So take me to the moment that you walk into this new place that you're living. What was that moment like?
I'm still in shock.
Aw.
I'm still like, I'm not even putting words on it. I'm still in shock. Sometimes I think I'm gonna wake up and get a call from Madison being like, yeah, it's canceled. I'm not even lying. I think it's just too good to be true. I think it's, and I mean, my parents are glad, that's for sure.
They would have worried about you. I'm a mom, so I would have worried about you too.
Yeah, and I mean, there's I'm not drinking as much as I used to, so they're glad I'm not drinking myself silly.
And you've got
day
this
in, day
beautiful
out.
place to be now, and it's safe, and your stuff is there. You don't
Well-
have to go
well-
clipping it off
well,
anything.
this is just the thing, is I have, my books are here, you know, my clothes are here, friggin', you know, I have like a place where someone else can sit. I can be, you know, now I can be like, hey man, you want to come over?
Right.
You know, if I meet someone new, I can be like, oh well, you can come over.
How does that feel?
I can cook you. I can cook you supper.
Right. What would you cook?
Oh.
make a good cup of coffee. The first day
cup of coffee?
moved in,
Yeah, there you
after
go.
we unpacked everything, he
There
made me
you
a cup
go.
of coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, is this why you do this work?
Absolutely,
Yes.
it's challenging. Don't get me wrong, it's really hard. But those days where we're finally able to move someone in, there's nothing like it. It's amazing.
What's the holidays going to be like for you?
Well, I got my Christmas gifts bought like basically the day I got the call.
You got some decorations in your place too.
Yeah, I got. You gave me a little Christmas cactus looking thing.
Yes.
I got some. I got some candles, but they're burnt already.
Oh, yeah,
They're
that's okay.
They're gone.
okay. But celebrating that time, you know, and to have the holidays, starting a brand new year, I mean, all of that, you know, is really incredible. You're starting 2024 in your own place. I mean, has that sunk in?
No. No. I mean, to be honest, I don't know what I'm doing for New Year's, for Christmas. It's spending time with the family. But I mean, it still shocks me because I still expect, I'm gonna get a call from Madison on my cell, or you know,
Which I wouldn't do, by the way.
Right. No, I know you wouldn't. I know
like
you
it's
wouldn't.
still gonna come in like, well, yeah, it's canceled. Like it still kind of just is there. Like, you know, this is just a
And
tease.
is this
You
common
know,
in
like,
medicine? Like, is this common where people think it's a bit of a dream?
I think so. I often, that leading up when we have a lease signing, I'm always asking people like, how do you feel? And the common thing is always like, this isn't real. It doesn't feel like this is mine, especially for a lot of our folks who've been chronically homeless for so long. So people have been living in shelter for, you know, years. It's, you know, they can't see themselves being housed. It's, you know, it's a dream to them.
It was a dream. And having somebody over is special, right? To have somebody and be able to say, this is your place.
oh yeah,
Which is wonderful.
yeah. I mean, like for like my housewarming party or whatever, we just had pizza, but everyone had a place to sit.
That's great.
Like, yeah,
great.
yeah.
Can I just, we only have about 30 seconds, Riley, but what would you say to the donors, people that have made this possible at Options Bytown?
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot. And I'll try to volunteer as much as I can. Yeah, thank you.
That's wonderful. Well, you're doing a lot today by sharing your story, so thank you so much for being with us today. I loved your story. I loved that you shared it, and all the best for 2024. Thank you.
You too.
Yeah, thank
You
you,
too.
Riley. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madison.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Sam.
your time today. Madison Salmon, we're just one of the angels that work at Options Bytown, and there is a whole crew there led by Catherine Vanderline. To all of the amazing guests that have joined me today on Options Bytown show featuring the incredible work that's being done there to house people in situations that are a bit precarious and giving them that permanent home. Just a joy to share this story with you today. Thank you so much for spending time with us here on An Hour to Give. We speak about community, philanthropy, and volunteerism. I'm Sam Laprade, and I am your very proud host. Thank you so much.